Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Mariah Schaefer, and I am the social work intern here at the Social Work and Psychology Clinic here at OU. My chart says that you go by Bree. Is that what you would prefer to go by today?
Yeah, Bree's fine.
Perfect. Okay. So before we get started kind of exploring your situation, there are just a few foundational things that I have to share with you. First of all, what we are doing here today is a 30-minute drop-in session, which can seem very fast because I'll be sharing a lot of information with you and you'll be sharing information with me. And this is different than our usual sessions, which are about 45 to 50 minutes, so they're a little bit longer down the road. But for the next 30 minutes, we're going to kind of explore your situation and the different skills and strategies that we can use to kind of help you out in that sense. Before we keep going, have you been to counseling before?
No, actually, this is my first session, so I'm pretty nervous. I don't know what to expect, and I don't know. It's just really different for me to go out and seek help with this kind of stuff.
That's very understandable. Counseling can be something that is difficult to start, especially if it's something you've never experienced before. I just want to let you know that this is a very relaxed environment, and things that you share with me are going to be confidential. And this is another thing I have to share with you in terms of confidentiality. So the things that you share in our sessions about any information or situations that you are in will be private between us, except for a few circumstances. So the first circumstance is if you share anything with me about child abuse or elder abuse. I am a mandated reporter, so I do have to report that to my supervisor. And also in cases if you are planning to harm yourself seriously or have the intent to harm somebody else seriously, I am required to report that as well. Do you have any questions kind of about that process?
You said you have a supervisor. Do I get to meet the supervisor? 'Cause I don't know if I'm super comfortable with someone that's not you knowing what I'm talking about, since it's my first time in counseling.
Sure. So how that works is since I am just an intern, I have a supervisor that I report to and share kind of the information. If you share it with me and it's something that is imminent that I need to share with them, that is the only thing that I will be sharing with them. If you would like to meet my supervisor, we can definitely arrange a time for that, just to kind of make you feel comfortable with who else might be hearing this information. But for the most part, a lot of the information will just stay between you and I.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that makes sense. I would like to meet them too.
Sure, we can set up an alternate time after this meeting if you would like to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, yeah, of course. So we went over a few things, and then one more thing is for our cancellation and fee policy. Did you go over that with the receptionist at the front?
Yeah, I did.
Perfect. And do you have any questions about that process? Okay, awesome. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself just to start off our session?
Yeah, so originally I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, which is about a 3.5-hour drive from here, so I'm not super far away from home, but not close enough that I can see my family as much as I would like.
Okay.
I usually don't go home unless it's winter break or spring break, and obviously summer vacation, so that's kind of the weird transition for me, was being so far away. I'm a junior social work major. I'm also double minoring in psychology and sociology, so I've had a pretty heavy course load since I got here. It's starting to even out a little bit, so I don't have as many classes, but my stress is still pretty up there, just because I'm getting closer to graduation, so there's just a lot on my plate right now. So that's really I guess what's about me right now.
Great, thank you for sharing that with me. It seems that you do have a lot on your plate. You mentioned that you are far away from home, which can be a strain, and that your academics are becoming more rigorous due to you graduating soon. In the next year or so, you said you were a third year, and also your different job responsibilities and kind of how that plays into your stress and how that can kind of affect your life. Can you tell me a little bit more about when you're feeling stressed, or kind of what triggers the stress for you?
I guess I just have a history regarding my parents and academics. They've just always been very strict about how well I do in school and my grades, and I've always been involved from elementary school all the way up. So it's always just been ingrained in me I have to do well in school or else my parents are going to be upset. So I guess coming to college, I still have that mindset, even though they express to me, as long as I'm doing my best, then they're happy. But I just feel like my best isn't really good enough all the time, so I push myself, and I'm like adding on these classes and trying to get to graduation and graduate with honors and all that, so they're like proud of me. And I think it just really takes a toll on me because I'm really putting too much pressure on myself that I don't need to, so it just makes me far more stressed than I need to be, and that's healthy for me.
Very understandable. You mentioned pushing yourself a little too far and kind of like putting a lot of pressure on yourself. It sounds like you're feeling very overwhelmed with everything that you have to do. Does that kind of sound right?
That's literally like nail on the head, like, that type of situation, yeah.
Yes. Okay, very understandable. And you mentioned with your parents putting that pressure on you and then kind of feeling like you have to live up to their standards. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and I'm the only one of my siblings to go to school, and all of my siblings are smart. Like, it's not like, they couldn't get into college, it just wasn't the right path for them. So I just feel like me being the only one going to school, I just feel like I have a lot to live up to, and they're just so proud of me. Like, my mom's always on Facebook, like, telling about my accomplishments all these years. So I just think they have this expectation that I'm just going to, like, overachieve and, like, do all these great things, and they don't mean any harm by it. I don't think they realize a lot of the time that I have, like, these ideas about how they feel about me and, like, being successful and everything. But yeah, I think it's really just like they're used to me being so good in school, so it's just kind of like there's not much of a communication regarding like my stress and like how they have contributed to that over the years.
Okay. So you've mentioned that you have this stress from your parents, that you're feeling very overwhelmed, and these expectations that they have. Also, the expectations that you have about yourself, and kind of this rigorous course load that's kind of happening, and then your limited time due to other commitments and graduation coming up. You feel very stressed and very overwhelmed with the time that you have left. You've mentioned a lot of things which are very understandable, and I'd love to cover all of them. But if you don't mind, would you care if we focused on one of these aspects just to kind of talk more about and make sure that we give it the attention that it needs right now? And then in the future, if you feel comfortable with this, we can focus on the other aspects so that we can kind of get a full picture of what's happening in your situation and figure out skills and strategies that we can use to kind of cope with these issues that you're having, and then figure out ways to make these better. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I think I would like to start with just how I deal with my stress.
Okay.
Usually on like really any given week, I probably break down at least once, just from having to deal with classes, any job stuff I have to do. Like, I'm an RA, so there's a lot of stuff I have to do to like stay in contact with my residents on top of like assignments and exams. Trying to keep in contact with my family because I'm really big on family and everyone wants to know how I'm doing, and it's just I just get really overwhelmed. I don't know how to work through it, so I just usually break down and just like start crying, and it kind of sets me back a little bit. So then I'm just getting re-stressed and anxious because I spent time crying and not working on this project or studying for this exam. So it's just really a never-ending cycle, I feel like, and I just want to like break it and figure out what works best for me so I can be healthy and happy.
Okay. And thank you for sharing that with me. I know that can be kind of hard to talk about, definitely being emotional and vulnerable in that sense, so that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So you mentioned these breakdowns. What happens in these emotional breakdowns? Can you tell me a little more about that, and kind of like how you know that they're coming on? Like, how do you know that you're going to have one of these breakdowns?
It's usually, sometimes it's like my final breaking point if I have a lot going on, or it can be simple as there's just one thing for an exam I just can't get through my mind, like I can't get it to stick. So it's usually like my mind starts racing and I'm just like tearing myself down, like, how do you not get it, like, you're so dumb, it's so simple. And then I just start crying and crying and crying, and like thoughts don't stop, and I try to breathe through it, but it doesn't really help. So I usually just like cry it out and hope that I can get it under control in less time than usual.
Okay. And you mentioned that these kind of happen often, more often than you'd like. How do you usually get yourself to kind of stop with these mental breakdowns? How do you get yourself to maybe stop crying, or kind of get yourself together to like move on with your assignments and stuff?
I really don't know. I think that's part of the problem. Like sometimes I just wait until I just can't cry anymore so that I can just get back to whatever I was doing. Sometimes I'll just take a nap, like if it's the weekend and I know like I have, I guess, a few hours to spare, like I'll just try and sleep it off and hope that like when I wake up I can just get right back to what I was doing. So.
Okay. So you mentioned sleeping and kind of not really having a foolproof way in order to stop these breakdowns. So if it's okay with you, would you mind sharing with me kind of your goal for these breakdowns? Like, are you interested in learning how to keep them from starting, and since you're kind of looking to break that cycle you mentioned before, and maybe ways to, if you feel yourself in an emotional breakdown, how to kind of cope with that and stop that? Does that sound like something you'd like to do?
Yeah, actually, I would really love that.
Great. Okay, so some things I would really like to start actually scheduling bi-weekly meetings with you, if that would be okay. Perfect. And then in those meetings, we can focus on the other things that you mentioned are leading to your stress. And also, in those meetings, we can talk about specific different behavior changes that we can do, and different strategies that we can look at. But for now, I'm going to suggest, have you heard of the app WellTrack?
I have actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So it's an app that you can put on your phone that kind of tracks your behavior and your emotions throughout the day, and kind of keeps you in check with how you're feeling. So if you feel like you're going to have an emotional breakdown, you can look at the app and be like, oh, how was I feeling at this time? And what were different events that were happening? Was I at work? Was I in class? Did I have a big test? So kind of looking at the root of why that stress kind of occurred. And then another thing I can share with you is something called mindful breathing, which might actually really help you out during an emotional breakdown, and even preventing one from happening. So it's really easy. You can practice this anywhere. It's just taking a few minutes to yourself and closing your eyes and taking a deep breath for about 5 minutes, and keep breathing in and out throughout these 5 minutes. And you're going to find that maybe sometimes different thoughts can come in, and maybe, oh, I'm really stressed out, or oh, I just remember this test I had the other day. But making sure that you keep focusing on the breathing, and that'll help you kind of center your emotions. So does that seem like something you can kind of work on until our next session?
Yeah, it seems pretty simple. I could definitely incorporate that into my day.
Perfect. Okay, that sounds great. Do you have any more questions for me during our drop-in session?
No, I don't actually. Like, I'm very happy that I came to do this today.
Perfect. I'm so glad that you came in today, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you again.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.